Welcome back to the HUD everyone, I'm Zacharoni, and in my important announcement for my topping series, I said that I was going to stop making topping videos because I was losing it in my last two videos. But what I also didn't say is that I was treating it like a job rather than a hobby, and that was getting it to my head entirely. And after discussing it with a family member of mine, let's just say that she agrees with me of what I did, and it was best for my health. Plus, I want to experience life outside of my hobby more often. Not only outside, but also other media entertainment as well. But that won't stop me from talking about the games that I played and beaten throughout the last 3 months. So without further ado, please be seated, and here's what's on my completed menu so far. On June 20th, 2021, I started playing Final Fantasy VII Remake's DLC, Intermission. And then on June 18th, 2021, I finished the story. You know, there's no shame in lowering the difficulty down if it's starting to get too much for you. Maybe because you want to focus on the story, maybe you are not a fan of the combat, or probably a bit of both really. And what I like about Final Fantasy VII Remake is that I can make a character do one command, and then I can switch to another character to supply support for my attack allies. But in Intermission, they remove that feature and replace it with a combine ability to allow me to combine attacks with another partner who is controlled by the AI. Even though I can give him commands to do certain attacks and use items for a quick recovery. Which is not a bad combat system that combines Yuffie's ability to throw her giant shuriken for supportive damage, but I think I prefer the battle system in the main game, to be honest. Luckily though, the story was a saving grace, following goofball Yuffie who has come to Midgard to find a rare materia for her clan, while Cloud and company do their thing during chapter 8 to 13. And if I remember Yuffie from the original game, she was this optional party member who was sort of a trickster who always outsmarted the other group for her own reasoning. But now in Intermission, I find her more likable than her original counterpart. Still a goofball, but not annoying this time around. Plus, her partner Sono is also likable, with his ambition to keep Yuffie safe during the mission, and his conclusion was quite shocking in the final slice. Though given that the DLC costs £17.99, the time to complete the story lasts around 3 hours of playtime, even if the final slice did set up Yuffie's future for part 2. So overall, I give Intermission a bronze medal, and let's hope they bring back the enjoyable Fort Condor board game that was featured in this DLC. On June 25th, 2021, I started playing Mario Golf Super Rush, and then on July 18th, 2021, I gave up on it. Remember that golf game I played in my leftovers called Golf Story? If so, then you might remember that I really enjoyed that game. So while I'm waiting for its sequel titled Sports Story, I thought I'd play the latest Mario Golf title that had an adventure mode to keep me waiting, which is my first Mario Golf game I ever played. But unfortunately, the adventure mode is lacking what made Golf Story so memorable, and that probably had to do with a lack of a decent story and exciting scenarios, and it served as a tutorial for its selling point modes, which I couldn't get into when I started playing. So the one feature that was advertised in Super Rush is Speed Golf, where everyone swing their golf clubs at the same time, and they all rake to the hole to be the fastest while having the least amount of par to deduct the amount of time they have. Now in theory, that would sound fun racing to the hole, but in practice I didn't find it that exciting to play. Not even the barrel golf grabbed a hold of me for being over so quickly. Also, I didn't like how you take curve shots because it was hard to tell what angle the ball is gonna go when I tried to do a curve shot. So in summary, Mario Golf Super Rush gets a stone medal, a brave effort for doing something new, but I think I prefer to play golf where I can just admire my shots than just immediately rush to it. On July 2nd, 2021, I played and beaten Kajua's Classic Mode in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The end is almost coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, not only for eSport with Nintendo's questionable decisions, but also for the DLC, and Kazuya from Tekken is the next character before the final challenger. So Kazuya is sort of like Ryu, Ken, and Terry, where they always face their one-on-one opponents, but what separates him from the others is that he is the slowest character of the bunch with the heaviest recovery jumps, but he can do the most combos with the standard attack button. Plus, he can do more damage if he suffered a lot of damage before being knocked off the stage, adding a bit more risk to his playstyle. Even though I actually criticized his classic mode at first, but on a closer inspection, each character represents a fighter and moment from the Tekken series. From the first fighter Ryu that represent Jin Kazuma, sorry if I didn't pronounce that last name right, to Donkey Kong and King K. Rool that represent the animal fighters, even though DK is the wrong species, and the final battle is a homage to the final showdown in Tekken 7, each stage having different music from the entire franchise. Though he's not quite as memorable as Sephiroth, who made a bigger impact on the internet, I found him more enjoyable than the last fighter, Pyra and Mithra, and just like them, he gets a silver medal. Now let's hope that the last fighter is a worthy farewell to the ultimate sequel. On July 4th, 2021, I started playing Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes, and then on August 11th, 2021, I beaten the game. So the main criticism of Travis Strikes Again is the perspective, where it presents itself as a top-down shooter, but instead of shooting, you don't make your character swing their weapons around rapidly. Like trying to smack at pinatas while being blacked out, with their attacks having no kickback on enemies, and their recovery times are weak. Plus, the power-ups are pretty much hit and miss, like the sticky bomb that can be effective, but sometimes it doesn't hit the target I wanted to attach to, and what's worse is that they are all on a charging system. But what saves it from getting a stone medal is the writing and story. Following Travis Touchdown, who is resting out in the forest to take a break from assassinations, but then Badman, the father of Mega Bad Girl, decided to repay him by clobbering him. That is until they get sucked into a game console known as the Death Drive Mark II, a reference to the Sega Mega Drive/Genesis, where they must beat 6 games in order to grant them a wish. And you probably know where this is going by now. Now what I didn't mention in No More Heroes 2 is that it focused on comedy too much, but in Travis Strikes Again, the tone has gone back to its serious roots like in the original No More Heroes, that is still funny and ridiculous, but not too much for it to overstay its welcome. Like there's this one moment where he feels guilty killing his favorite protagonist in a sequel that never would release. And there was this one game that is based on one of Suda's titles that talk about the flaws of it because of publisher's decision. In fact, if you're already completing the game, I highly recommend you look at GamerBrit's The Meaning of Travis Strikes Again, where I learned a lot from what he said about the game and Suda's history in the games industry. And for the final slice, well, despite from its gameplay and teeth-grinding final boss, it does wrap things up pretty hilarious, and it does set the stage for the third game. But I think they should have given Badman what he wanted in the game and not outside of it. Oh right, the DLC that came with it. Well, despite having a backstory for Badman and a setup for the second DLC, I didn't feel like completing it because of its frustrating gameplay. But I already know that they got their reward after beating it. Case in point, it was teased in the box and the trailer when it was revealed in public. Almost seemed like Suda realized his latest game didn't catch on that well with critics. So overall, I'll give it a bronze medal for its writing and story. But I think it should have been a graphic novel than a game really. On July 8th, 2021, I started playing Boomerang X, and then on July 14th, 2021, I beaten the game. You know, I have this one dream concept mechanic where I have a character throw something, and then I press a button that allowed me to slingshot myself across the environment. And that dream became a reality with Boomerang X, a first-person action game where you use a 4-bladed boomerang to throw at enemies that required me to keep moving, while having a steady aim with enemies that fly around the environment and come at me. But the real star of the show is the slingshot mechanic that I mentioned earlier, where I can throw my boomerang and then press it again to instantly zip me across where it was thrown at before it comes back to me. Though I wish it had some time trial races where I can test my speedy slingshot skills instead of my targeting skills. And while I'm at it, the idea of recovering shield energy is missing the point of the always keep moving loop. Should have been something like defeat a certain number of enemies to recover one slot. But hey, that's just my hot take. Also, it's short, lasting around 2 or 3 hours of playtime, but I did enjoy the final slice where it was a test of everything I learned in the game. So, final score, a gold medal from me, right between other creative first-person games that are not Portal like Superhot and Ghost Runner. On July 15, 2021, I started playing Streets of Rage 4's DLC, Mr. X Nightmare. Mr. X Nightmare, some bozo forgot to put S next to X, offers 3 new characters that play differently to one another. Like policewoman Esto, who is well-rounded and can call for backup like in the original Street of Rage, Max Thunder from Street of Rage 2, who is the second tank of the group, and then there's Shiva, where, unlike other characters, he doesn't use weapons like knife and drain pipes. Instead, he just flicks them up in the air and just kicks them right at anyone that's in front of him, while taunting that he is the only weapon. So the next thing to do is to check them out in the new story, and sadly, it doesn't have one. Instead, Mr. X's Nightmare is a survival mode where you survive endless rounds, but at the end of each round, you are given a set of perks to carry on to the next round. But while I enjoyed my first few attempts at this, I didn't find myself returning to this, which is still a unique mode, but I'm not too big on survival modes that randomly generates the game itself. Plus, if you play at them in the main story, you just fight rainbow versions of them. Literally. So Mr. X's Nightmare, yes I'm putting the S on the end, gets a certificate of appreciation from me. Oh, and let's just hope that statement where you open up survival mode is a sign for what to come for this franchise. On July 20th, 2021, I started playing Chris Tales, and then on August 20th, 2021, I burned out from it. So admittedly, I'm not big on RPGs where I'm more interested in the story than the gameplay itself, just as long as it got an interesting loop to it. But when I first gave a shot at Dream's unincorporated demo for Chris Tales, I was impressed with the combat system of how it's going to play, and how the story is set up. But unfortunately, in the final project, I found the game to be quite a cakewalk, where I mastered the fundamentals of the combat system that losing its appeal the more I played it. In fact, one of the mechanics they showed off at the start is using elements in the present and then switch over to the future that had stats effects to them. And while there was some creative use with it, I just ended up using magic on its own to counter enemy weaknesses. That is why I prefer Christopher in my party, who is the king with magic, over Zaz, who utilized on luck than skill for her attacks. So yeah, I was pretty bored with this one, which is a shame because I want to see the story through, because it started off great with choices that aren't black and white, but some characters will have different opinions about my decisions, just like mine right now. Oh, and I put burned out instead of gave up because I have been playing other games that I find more enjoyable than this, making me forget about the plot of Chris Tales that I couldn't continue with. But I don't think this is a bad game, or even a great game, so I'll just give it a certificate of appreciation, and let's hope that I spend more time with the next RPG in the future, just as long as they had a battle system that required skill and patience. On July 30th, 2021, I started playing Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, and then on August 29th, 2021, I finished the story with only 94% of the map explored. Most Metroidvania games have me playing a character who is grounded on their feet to overcome tricky platforms and enemies, but in Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, you play as a small UFO who has full movement through the environment, where I started off with a plasma cannon. And as I keep playing, I find myself unlocking new tools to use, like a claw to pick up objects, missiles that track my cursor, and a buzzsaw to dig through weak stones like they are made of popcorn. But while you can use these on enemies that come at you, the real use for them is in the different environments that come with their own puzzles to solve, like reflecting lasers to guiding missiles to their designated target. Though there are a few complaints I have that stopped it from getting a higher medal, like some puzzles, particularly later on, are frustrating to pull off. The version I was playing on didn't support my controller, the Xbox One, and it's short, lasting around 3 to 4 hours of my playtime with a final slice that was taken out quite easily. Which is a bit odd because the previous boss fights I faced in the game was more of a worthy challenge than the final slice has to offer. But in the end, I had a pretty good time with this bizarre, weird, and not quite odd world of this Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. So I'll just give it a bronze medal. See what I did there? On August 3rd, 2021, I started playing Here Comes Nico, and then on August 5th, 2021, I beaten the game with only 46 of the 74 coins collected. A while back, I looked at GateMad's, I hope I pronounced that name right, why I prefer wholesome video game video where he prefer games where he is not punished and just breathes in the atmosphere without rushing. And I understand why, because I enjoy Journey, Abzu, and Grease that offered experiences where I can admire the environment in the game itself. So I decided to get a game he is eager to try known as Here Comes Nico, a 3D platformer where there is no danger or death. And to its credit, it did that well with its world, character design and controls, but I was expecting more with this title. Because while it had its moments like riding in a ball and reuniting a gay couple, yes there is a gay couple in the game, it started to recycle them where I need to collect a set amount of coins to get an ending, and that's lost my interest in 100% in this game. So final analysis, given that the game can be beaten in 3 or 4 hours of playtime, a certificate of appreciation. A solid chill platformer, but I think it should have been something else than a help someone collectathon really. On August 22nd, 2021, I started playing Ghost of Tsushima's DLC, Ika Island, and then on September 25th, 2021, I finished the last story mission. Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games of last year, and when I heard that it would get in a DLC expansion and an upgrade to the PS5, I guess it was time to return with Jin Sakai. Then, after getting everything ready for the PS5 version, I tried out the new expansion known as Ika Island, where at the start of the DLC, my horse now played a vital role in combat, where I can use him to charge into a group of enemies. And then after that, I just sort of didn't use him that much throughout my experience, given that there aren't any missions yet that features his horse. As for everything else, well, gameplay is still the same, which offered a new land to explore that is filled with monkeys, but the new shaman enemies where they boot the confidence of their allies kept me on high alert. But what kept me playing is the story, involving Jin, who had been consumed with a poison that allows the user to go insane with hallucinations, and this is crucial given that Ika Island is the place where his father was killed off, as I recall when playing the main game. So I was eager on my feet to see how Jin would cope with this, particularly when he found out who was his father's killer is near the end of the story, and by the time I got to the final slice, it was a satisfying moment of closure where I caught up to the Eagle, the villainess of Ika Island, even if her boss fight was a pizza cake. So while I haven't 100% the island yet, as well as the main island to be very honest, I still enjoyed the story, from Jin's haunting past to the Eagle's motivations and deviant tactics. It's a silver medal from me. Oh, and did I mention that I got cats as well? No? Well it does. Now watch me stroke this little guy for a few seconds. On August 23rd, 2021, I started playing Bowser's Fury, and then on September 7th, 2021, I beaten Fury Bowser with 50 cat stars out of 100. When I got Super Mario 3D World on the Switch for my birthday, I immediately skipped that and jumped straight into Bowser Fury, where we team up with Bowser to unexplain how did he get a son Bowser Jr. to restore his father who had covered up with goop and in an uncontrollable fury in a land full of cats. In fact, the entire land is one big cat meme, from trees, structures, and even the local hostiles who are all scoring cat ears and tails. Anyway, Bowser's Fury is a 3D platformer with Super Mario 3D World elements like run boosters, cat suits, and the mini-bosses from 3D World. But the big difference is that Fury Bowser slowly reveals himself every few moments, and you have to keep collecting cat stars that are hidden in each of the 3 areas in the game. Then, after collecting a set number of them, the Giga Bell is unlocked that turns Mario Kaiju side to battle the big brute, while scoring a cat suit, upgraded from a young cub to a fully grown king. Though these battles do get repetitive at times, but I do find new ways of taking him down, like throwing objects at him, even though I can lock onto him and the camera can be really sluggish to keep up with the action. Plus, the game can be beaten in around 2 or 3 hours of my playtime. But the final slice does have a little interesting twist that raised the difficulty of finding cat stars that ends with a simple but satisfying conclusion. So overall, I'll give it a silver medal. It might be short, but it does have a unique idea to the 3D collectathon that more developers will take inspiration from. Call me. On September 11, 2021, I started playing WarioWare Get It Together, and then on September 13, 2021, I beaten the game's story mode. WarioWare had always found new ways of humor for each platform, starting with the GBA where you use the buttons and later tilting, the DS with the stylus, and how can we forget the Wii with smooth moves, where it revolutionized the word humility in front of our friends. But after newer games on the DSi, Wii U, and Gold on the 3DS, it was almost a matter of time before it started to run out of gimmicks. And that was the first sign of worry when I played the demo for Get It Together, where you use chibi versions of characters that play differently to one another. But that was ignored with some of the silly stuff you do in the game, like squeezing toothpaste, picking a winner, and closing a curtain for a vampire. However, while you can pick up to 3 characters to play in a single run, and then all of them at once, I often end up using some characters over others, like Ashley, who can move around shooting anything in her path, over 9-Volt, who is constantly moving and can't be turned around until he bumps into something. Plus, I feel a little let down with the lack of outros at the end of each level, which led me to a lot of head-scratching plot holes like what was at the bottom of Wario's hole when he was falling through exactly. As for the final slice, well, the setup was genius where I had to use every character unlocked in the game, but the ending feels anticlimactic. And then there's the multiplayer, which I didn't record unfortunately, but after playing a few games with it, I found it completely unbalanced with modes that are pretty hit and miss, where you don't get to pick your main character at all. So to wrap this up, I'll give it a bronze medal, a fun and interesting spin on the franchise, but not quite as memorable as previous titles unfortunately. Okay, so that's the games I played and beaten throughout the last 3 months. What about the ones I'm still playing? Well, I'm nearly done with Psychonauts 2, but I don't have the word to describe what I think of it yet. So look like you're going to have to wait for 3 months for this contender for Game of the Year. Another game that I'm getting back to is No More Heroes 3, and that's probably have to do with the situation that I mentioned at the intro, but with the new changes, it will probably make my life a bit more smoother. And hopefully I'll complete this before my next game is released. Though there is one game that I'm going to be spending on for a while, and that's Deathloop, which I'm hoping that the PC version will be fixed, and to figure out the right connection to beat the game. So check back with me later, and I'll tell you what I think of Deathloop, Psychonauts 2, No More Heroes 3, and all the other games I've been playing in a completed menu. And if you like what you see, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Plus, stay in touch with my Twitter page, link in description down below. But until then, I'm Zacharoni. Enjoy your pizza, remember to wash your hands, and I'll see you next time.